Here is an email from A.H., who's in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. She says, I can't help but wonder why Ms. Kerman was sentenced to 13 months in prison while Kemba Smith, a young black woman who also became involved in the drug trade through a romantic relationship, was sentenced to 24 and a half years in prison. Does Ms. Kerman have any idea why that disparity came about?
So the very first night that I went to sleep in prison, I went to sleep saying, I am so lucky. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And I was saying that because I felt like I'm so lucky I'm only spending 1 year in this horrible place. During that course of that first afternoon in general population, I had met, what seemed like hundreds, but it was probably dozens of women. And the acceptable icebreaker in prison is not, why are you here? It is, how much time do you have? So people would ask me that, and I would sort of quaver back to them that I had a 15-month sentence, and they would immediately start calculating what would I get off for good behavior, which, would take me down to 13 months. And then I would squeak back, well, how much time do you have? And some of those women were doing short time, like I was, but a lot of those women were doing much longer sentences, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, longer. So as the days and the months went on, and I grew to know those other women very well, prisons and jails are close quarters. You will get to know people well, whether you like it or not. But I did. I grew to know all these other women very well. It was impossible to draw the conclusion that their crimes, for those women who were doing far more time than I was, that their crimes were so much more serious than my crime. You could only draw the conclusion that they had been treated differently by the criminal justice system because of socioeconomics, and in some cases because of the color of their skin. And you don't need to hear that anecdotally from me, because the data supports the point that different Americans will be policed differently, they will be prosecuted differently, and they will be sentenced differently. So I don't know all of the ins and outs of Kemba Smith's case. I do know that I believe her sentence was ultimately commuted, her unbelievably harsh sentence. But there's no question that communities of color, and especially poor communities of color, are disproportionately targeted by law enforcement, and that people of color are a very disproportionate percentage of our prison and jail system. And the conclusion that I draw is that the criminal justice system is inappropriately used as a tool of control over communities of color. It is not that, the crime rates between Wall Street folks and people in very poor neighborhoods, are as wildly disproportionate as the prison population would lead you to believe.